put on your stack.
Is the orchestra fella here?
Interlinked via cafe.
The orchestra fella that he knows. Is he here?
So I once come to your house thinking in that it was him. So I always called him Rollins. The wrong Collins.
Hello? Hear me? Is this on or?
It's not on. It's not on.
It's on.
1, 2, 3.
Hello?
No, it's not. It's not on.
So we'll watch.
Do you want me to give you a song or?
International Velvet one.
Give you a bit of Ali Jones if you want.
But it's not working. Don't do that.
You never do
I'm an
that.
ex-technician.
This is a good start, isn't it?
We'd have to shout instead.
It's a small room.
We are professionals, we're always above it. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Hello.
I'll be back in a minute.
He's running out.
Never to be seen again.
It's not just PowerPoint. It's all
It's the launch. Yeah.
It's the night though.
No, I've been in London for months. I've been away and then for 2 weeks.
She was wobbling her. She was
I
wobbling.
knew this was coming in. I thought I'm not going up and back. It's just tiring.
She was wobbling her glasses then.
Yeah.
Yeah, any requests or what?
Michael's doing it behind me.
Is this not right?
Is it working?
Hello?
Got to go like the professionals. 1, 2, 3.
We just project.
Oh, it's not working?
None of them work.
No, hello.
Nice. Toy mod tread.
Turn the electric on. Switch.
That echo kids toy. You want come and drinks after?
Yeah. It's Oktoberfest.
You hungry, guys?
I think it's in doubt.
Did you eat them?
It's about at least a grand before we start.
All day, right?
I heard there's one in April. Which is the better one? It's quieter. So we do something similar.
I think there's loads of things you can do for a stag do. And that's good. Just like always in Dublin.
But
Yeah.
Also, use it very quick.
Paul used to be the sound man in Sydney.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stage technician.
Oh, he's going to have a look.
Which one was them in Catatonia then? The one with the beard that was in Azure that day. Not here, that's his big name. It must be the guy doing the stuff down there in the shirt.
The Sandman.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, he's so fine now.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not exactly young now, is she?
She's an
Just give him a minute to see if he can do it. It'd be better with mics, I think. It would.
Have you turned the power on? At the wall.
Yeah.
That's what happened with your doorbell, Gareth. Is it one working? It wasn't turned on.
It was a bit weird. The doors were shut for a while. They could have let us in
Probably
and
was
tested
not
it
the
for
chairs.
us.
I don't know.
Is that what they're doing?
But did they just for every book launch? Probably.
Oh, okay.
Well, some book launches in the day when the shop's open and there's a talks in there as well. The funny thing is, the silliest thing is sometimes you're going to check all the boxes and it's not switched on, it's on. I mean, it's the same thing with the doorbell the other day. They were saying one working
Yeah,
on,
no,
and I
well,
went,
it's
got
turned
turned
on,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just gone back then.
We can hear, but
Yeah.
Passed you on Saturday. The first year you were course in art.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The amps on it.
Yeah, sorry, no, sorry.
No, we didn't go anyway.
that's something to order when Nam's in.
Right, we ready? Okay. Yeah. Right, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. This has been, I'd describe it as a labour of love and a long slog in terms of it's from pitch to publication, it's been 3 years. So in that time, I have been thinking, my God, is anyone going to actually read it? So yeah, it's great to see you all here tonight. I'd like to, if you can give a warm welcome to our panel this evening. So we've got Huw Williams from the Pooh Sticks and Swansea Sound. We've got Patricia Morgan from Datblygu. And we've got not only from Catatonia to Cyrff, but my colleague for the last 10 years at St. David's Hall, yeah. Sorry, I forgot your name then.
It happens to me.
Pre-match news, that's what it is, yeah. Right, so this book obviously goes into the boom period of Welsh music, of the 90s, a period that I grew up in, I'm hugely nostalgic about. Although people are sort of get very nostalgic for their own childhoods, I think it was like a golden era. You had obviously this influx of bands like the Manics, Catatonia, Super Furries, 60-foot Dolls, Stereophonics, but also you had yourselves as well, the Pooh Sticks with Datblygu. So yeah, it's a really, really positive period to look back on. I thought that although there's been some great books written individually about, you know, the big four, so to speak, there's never been a book that's gone in depth on that whole era. So it's a real feel-good factor, you know, with 25 years of hindsight, looking back on not just music, but culture. So you've got huge names like Rhys Ifans and Catherine Zeta-Jones emerge in the 90s. Sport stars like Colin Jackson, Joe Calzaghe, Scott Gibbs' try in 1999 as well. A few of you should remember that one against England at Wembley. And then you've got the rise of the Welsh language as well, with the Welsh Language Act in 1993 putting Cymraeg on an equal footing as Saesneg, which changed daily education in Wales. And then on top of that, you've got devolution. So there was a yes vote in 1997, Wales' first parliament in 600 years. And yeah, it's really capturing that whole sort of positivity in Wales. I did want to go back into what happened before, really. So the intro covers the 60s to the end of the 80s. There's an outro cover in the 21st century. So before the 90s boom, there was actually a period when it was closer maybe to like uncool Cymru. There was a lot of mass employment and employment with the closures of the mines and the steelworks. The language was being disregarded by politicians, and there was problems with S4C, resounding no to devolution in 1979. But on top of that, every sort of bit of coverage that the London press would give Welsh bands would be accompanied by some naff headline about Welshness. You'd have bands like horror stories of bands going over to Bristol to get English postmarks put on their records. They were sort of immediately chucked on the rejection pile. You had record producers just not coming this side of the Severn Bridge. You had bands up in North Wales playing on the fact they were from Liverpool. So yeah, just going to throw it out to the panel. What is your sort of memories of that period?
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me. Yeah, I mean, we were playing in a Welsh language band at Cyrff for a long time, and the coverage that we did get, if we did get any, from enemy sounds at the time, and even Melody Maker, was very, very patronising. It was kind of like there was, I can't remember some of the quotes, but they were very sort of patronising about these Welsh bands from the valleys, always from the valleys, because that was quite odd, because we had one or two interviews with people, and they asked, you know, about how grim the valleys were, you know, and two of us, myself and Mark, who were in the band, were actually from the Conwy Valley, which is a really nice valley in North Wales, you know, so it's all like a stereotype of, you know, it must be grim, it must be dark, you know, but yeah, they didn't take any of the Welsh bands seriously, I don't think.
Well, we were on a mission to change Welsh pop culture. So to us, it didn't matter if the English didn't hear it or didn't want to listen. We just wanted Welsh people to hear us telling them how much we didn't like the way Welsh pop music was going and how backward it was, and we were on a mission to change it in Welsh so that we showed up the Welsh culture as it was.
For me, and don't worry, I'm not here to talk about the Pooh Sticks because no one knows who the Pooh Sticks are. I was the manager of 60 Foot Dolls, who some of you might know, and I kind of worked with Catatonia as well, all the way through. So don't worry about that. And I'm not a Welsh speaker, so I wasn't part of the Welsh language scene. But I think for me, growing up in Swansea, and again I apologise for that as well.
Get him out.
That's what the mic's not working, because I just give the blue one. But for me, growing up in Swansea, there was no. I was into alternative music, and there were no role models coming out of Wales for it. Young Marble Giants from Cardiff, I really liked. When
They were good,
I was 14, 15 when that happened. I was into them. But in Swansea, it was all Man and all the kind of old groups. Who now, with my mature years, I quite like. But I was kind of new wave kid, so I wasn't into all that. And the Pooh Sticks, we were based in Swansea and started in '88, so it was a bit later than some of the stuff you were doing. And we weren't, we were from Wales, and we never hid that fact, but it didn't seem to hold us back. We weren't gigging, we were a project, and we made records and got on John Peel and The Enemy, and it kind of took off quite quickly for us. So we didn't get those sort of, we used to get like Barefaced Cheek and Pooh What a Scorcher as headlines.
So yeah, the fight back was started with a vibrant Welsh language scene that was bubbling away into the surface in the mid-80s. Bands like Anrefn, Datblygu, Pat's band, Cyrff, Paul's band, and Fat Coffee Pow, who were Griff Reef's band who was later in Cyrff Annals. Quite a big change came when Rhys Moyn, who was in Anrefn, went up to London and would actively sort of knock on doors. He would demand to see people like John Peel, who he accosted in a wine bar, I think, and John's reaction was, "You're not going to mug me, are you?" He was quite a fiery punk compared to today. Via the compilations that Rhys was hanged into The Enemy, Melody Maker's Sounds, there was quite a change in sort of the amount of play of Welsh language music. So I know Rhys met with Dave, didn't they, Datblygu? What's your sort of memories of meeting Rhys, and how influential was he with Dave?
Oh gosh, yeah, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Rhys really pushing the boundaries, going out and making sure we were heard. Because we'd just been on the 2 LPs, it's just Cam to start with, and he brought that with him for Peel to hear. And our song The Time Lad was on it, and people started to think, oh, this is quite nice. And Anrefn got a Peel session, we got the Peel session after them, and things just developed from there, really. And once Peel liked us, and Radio Cymru weren't playing us, it was like, yes! We've won! The thing is, they didn't understand what we were saying. But at least we got recognition, and it meant a huge amount to us, really, the Peel. Really.
Am I right in thinking the first Cyrff songs were on those compilations as well?
Yes, they were, on both of those compilations.
Yeah.
And they were a really good way to, get people to hear all of these different bands, and they kind of grouped us all together as a little gang, really, didn't it? As people might be worth listening to.
Yeah.
I was the only woman.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you were, I think.
I was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite a different climate to us today in terms of there's a lot more, I think since the 80s and 90s, a lot more crossover in terms of non-Welsh speakers taking an interest in the Cymraeg scene now. I think back then it was a lot more divided, maybe, do you think?
Yeah.
So Mike Peters was quite inspirational in that respect, the lead singer of The Alarm. He wasn't a first language Welsh speaker, he learned because he wanted to bring that divide together. He released with The Alarm 2 bilingual albums, so there's Change and Newid in 1989, and then Raw and Tan in 1991. Not everyone was a fan though, so Richie Edwards from the Manics referred to the Welsh language as dead culture at the time and said it's really patronising the way they suddenly learned to speak the Welsh language when they'd written songs about the bright lights of the Mersey or Liverpool about 2 years before. So that was in relation to Spirit of 76, wasn't it? That you was talking all that, yeah. So what was the reaction amongst sort of Welsh language circles to Mike doing that as a, you know?
My own personal reaction was it didn't really make much difference to me.
Yeah.
I saw it as maybe something that was sincerely held, but it just also with the record company and everything behind it, it just felt like a bit of a bandwagon really, and we'd just been hacking on and doing it anyway. Do you know what I mean? So it didn't really make much difference to me. Whether it helped get attention, I don't know. But
I think
we already had quite a lot of attention.
But I think he was taking a lot of Welsh language bands on the road with him as well. So were it came at St David's Hall maybe?
Yeah, that was a moot point. We supported the Alarm in St David's Hall, and we already had a really strong following in Cardiff. You know, we could sell out Club of Bar, places like that. You know, and we did play with the Alarm, and it cost us a fortune.
Oh right.
Yeah, we ended up having to pay. I think it was we had to pay to get down here. That was no problem. But we also had to pay 30 quid to their lighting guy, 30 quid to their sound engineer, and we weren't allowed to use catering. We were pushed out of the way into the dressing room out of the way.
God.
And you know, Mike Peters came along and he said hello and everything, and it was really sweet, you know. But it kind of palled a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
That was your entry into the music biz,
Yeah.
the nasty side. Of music.
Yeah, it was things like the first time I think we'd worked with somebody else's tour manager.
Yeah.
Which is probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So have you reminded this over the years, or is he
No.
Oh right. I thought you were going to say, "Where's my 30 quid?"
I actually did pyros for the Alarm when they came the last time.
Right. Yes, of course.
But I didn't do anything mean with them.
I'd have put too much gunpowder in the pyros.
I didn't charge them.
So then this beast came bursting out of Blackwood then, 1992, Massive Eyeliner and Spray Paint. The Manics came in 1992 with Generation Terrorists. They initially seemed to sort of gobble up as much column inches for their sort of outrage stuff they would do at the start, more so than like taking any note of their music. And I think they love that as well. I think the music press love that as well. But yeah, what was your reaction to them, Huw? Didn't they used to come for you for early advice?
They wouldn't have asked me for advice. They did send us at least a couple of packages, I think. So they used to send out demo tapes, cassettes, with these handwritten things, missives from Richie, bless him, all handwritten, like pages and pages of it. We are the bastard children of King X. And they were memorable because this was early days of the Pooh Sticks, and we kind of were putting our own records out on a label called Fierce, which was quite a guerrilla sort of label, and Richie and Nicky were in university at the time, and the Pooh Sticks were getting in the enemy and all that stuff, so they were sending out these packages to people, and we weren't like a proper label. We were just putting our own stuff out, and we were doing sort of dodgy bootlegs and things. So it's a really terrible thing to say, but I think we read them and chucked them in the bin. A few years later, because Fierce was this sort of bootleggy label, there was a thing in the NME saying that Fierce were going to release these demo tapes as a single. It must have been a slow news week. And a few years later I went out for a drink with James, and he said, "Whatever happened to those tapes?" I said, "Well, that wasn't a serious thing, someone made that up." So the only time we found one of your tapes was one of the guitar players in the Pooh Sticks found this cassette that we'd sent to him and taped Pooh Sticks demos over their demos. So there goes my pension. So they didn't ask for advice. I mean, I saw them, like maybe you did. I think I saw possibly their first gig with Richie, which was in Swansea University, supporting Mega City 4, and they were all dressed in white.
Right.
Which the Pooh Sticks had done about 6 months before. So
they stole your luck then.
Well, yeah, they can have it. And it was kind of weird. And I had a photograph at the time there weren't many people there, and there were all these skinheads like with Union Jack shirts on, dancing at the front. I had a photo of this thing, I wish I had it now. Unfortunately, I haven't got any memorabilia because for a certain reason. But yeah, and I don't know what I thought of them at the time. I've sort of, I saw them a lot in those days, and they were intriguing. Put it that way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. But I suppose sort of polar opposites to your sort of ethos in terms of like they wanted to sell 16 million copies of their debut album, outsell Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. You obviously released a tongue-in-cheek album a year later called Million Seller, which had more sort of modest ambitions.
Yeah.
But, so what was that like?
We were probably selling as many records as them at the time. The funny thing is that they did come through a similar, you know, their first, that gig I saw, my mate Ian Ballard was there from Damaged Goods, who put out their first single. So they were a very indie band in the sense that they did all those things. Sorry, what was the question again?
So yeah, what was your sort of ethos compared to them? Because obviously you were like
totally. You need a title for an album, and I thought it was a good title. I mean, they were. It's interesting, you know. It's that stuff for Richie was, again, bless him, what he was saying. That I mean, they said a lot of things at those times that you can't say now. They would be cancelled.
My God, Richie Edwards,
the Michael Stipe thing, all that stuff. So they knew what they were doing. They were being inflammatory, and they would get. It was different times in the sense that you know, you live by the NME or the music papers, so you know that was your one shot every week to get in, and people talk rubbish, you know.
Yeah.
No, they didn't talk rubbish all the time, but they I did. So yeah.
Right. So one more question for you, Huw, before I head over to the other side of the panel. So there was another explosive band, the 60 Foot Dolls, coming out of Newport, who were spearheading the Newport scene, also with Dub War and Fly Screen, Novocaine, which the US rock writer Neil Strauss, who's a famous biographer, he was even in books for Motley Crue, Marilyn Manson, I think. But yeah, huge sort of name. And he rebranded Newport the New Seattle, meaning like it's the equivalent of the grunge scene in America happening in Newport. So you were actually managing the 60 Foot Dolls, who were pretty hell-raising back then.
Yeah.
What's your memory?
He didn't. I think I've actually read your book, Neil.
Oh, right.
in your book, Richard from 6 Foot Dolls does. That's just a myth of that thing, because he wrote an article about Spin magazine, and it actually says Wales was the new Seattle, because and Gorky's are in it, and 60 Foot Dolls and stuff. What was it like managing? They were hard work. You know, there was only 3 of them. And they were all, he's laughing, So they had a teenager on drums, Carl, who was pretty crazy.
He was thrown out with his father's, his father was a reverend. He started off in his band and got chucked out.
He was, and he was about 18, 19, I think, when I first saw them. He was a fantastic drummer. Mike, bless him, on bass, was, kind of was a heavy drinker, basically. Was an alcoholic. So, and then Richard, who's the singer and guitar player as well, is lovely but mad as a badger. So, and it's my job. They were splitting up all the time. And
he described himself in the book as the Gary Barlow of the band.
Quite the way I remember it. I mean, Paul was around. You saw them play. They were a fantastic live band.
They were a brilliant band.
They were never destined to last, unfortunately.
No, I think
they were exciting.
Yeah,
they were
there was
exciting.
something meteoric about them.
I think for quite a while, it's weird seeing the chronology in your book, is that they were kind of the biggest band for a while. They were the first band signed. They signed about September '94. You toured with them quite a lot.
We did,
The
potential
supported them
for what they could have done. It was amazing, really.
And it didn't quite.
It was
always going to fall apart. Really.
Absolutely.
They spent a lot of time in America because they were signed to Geffen Records. You had that thing of, of they needed to be out there a lot, and then lost momentum. Yeah, and that's the thing. Music biz stuff. It's you didn't really have that with Datblygu. You could do your thing.
Nobody wanted us to play.
Yeah. As soon as you sign that contract with the devil, it's hard work.
Conflicting things.
And it works in some aspects.
Sometimes it works
and
for a while.
other times it doesn't. Yeah.
Right, so by 1993, yourself, Paul, was living down in Cardiff with Mark Roberts.
I think, I wasn't living with him.
Well, you know.
1993, Kath?
I think you were living with me.
I haven't started any rumours now.
let's just squash that one.
Yes. Yeah. Living separately, yeah.
We've moved down to Cardiff, and I've been coming back and forth, you know, for quite a while, just to spend maybe 2 weeks working on songs and stuff, you know. Yeah.
So Sweet Catatonia, as they were called originally, was that just Mark and Cerys?
It was Mark and Cerys with, I think, I'm trying to think who was with them at the time. Frog was with them at the time, I think.
Frog,
Steve Jenkins, who we play with now.
Yeah.
There were a few other characters around Cardiff. I think Gitto from the Furries played on one thing that they did. So they were kind of picking up people to play. They didn't do much live stuff though.
So the story goes that Cerys was busking outside Debenhams, and Mark Roberts spots her with the elusive guitar string that she's missing. Or not, well, as it turned out.
Well, having read your book, you've cast some doubt on that.
Well, that's
that
not
was
true.
anything.
It's not true. What is true is my ex-partner Natasha she saw them busking, and this was in the Pooh Sticks, because the Pooh Sticks weren't a band. We didn't exist. It was me and another guy, and occasionally we put live things together. And there were women in the band, in the imaginary band. There were women in the bands that we put them together. And she saw Cerys, said, I've just seen this one play, she's brilliant. They're playing a gig on Sunday. And I went with Steve from Fierce Records to see them, and he was in downstairs in club.
I don't think I played on that one. No.
Right, okay.
That was before my time.
Really? Okay. Who was in that lineup then?
That was probably one with Steve Jenkins and with Gitto, probably.
This was about September '92, and they were called Sweet Catatonia.
That would have been just before.
Yeah, it was
because I think Mark realised that the gig that they played then was quite shambolic.
That's the word I was just about to use.
Getting a proper lineup together to actually do some gigs and do some touring.
It was totally shambolic, and she missed the bullet though, because we might have asked her to join the Pooh Sticks, and that would have been the end. She probably would have told us where to go.
Didn't Cerys say something like, "We knew you were coming, so we took a load of acid"? Or something
Mark
like
said that.
Oh, Mark
said that. And there's children in the audience, but
it's always good for the quote.
He said it with the raised eyebrow. And Cerys wrote me a letter after it saying, I can sing and I can play guitar. So she obviously did take it to heart that we didn't get back in touch with her. But I heard them then a year later when you put the thing out of Cry, Mark Radcliffe played it, and they got
We
back
did a
in
lot of
touch
work in between.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I didn't know who it was when I heard it on the radio. So this is great. And it was Catatonia. I was thinking, is that the same band? And so it's weird because that was less than a year later, I'd say.
The first little tour we did, because obviously she was very inexperienced at playing live gigs and stuff. You know, me and Mark have been doing it for quite some time, right? And we had Dav on drums, so obviously we were quite experienced. But I think it was Teresa's suggestion that we go somewhere where nobody knew us to do a little tour, so she could become a bit more sort of happy with the situation of being there in the front with us.
She was playing guitar as well at that point.
Yeah, she was, at that point, And there's obviously an awful lot of focus and pressure, and she wasn't happy, you know. So we went and we did like a little short tour of somewhere in Germany, I think. We did like 4 gigs in Germany. And nobody knew who we were. We were supporting somebody else, and I think that was really good. And it was good for her, I think, because she needed to, you know, learn how to.
Yeah. And in our case, we just had a gate crash.
So around this time, Catatonia, the Super Furries and Gorkies are emerging, predominantly in the Welsh language to start off with, then gradually going into a bit more bilingualism, and then going into the English language when they were heading more into the mainstream. You had incidents like the Super Furry Animals, who ruffle feathers by driving their own tank into the Eisteddfod, and whistling along to their English lyrics, because there was obviously, you know, no English allowed. Quite a way to do it, So Paul, did you face much backlash with Catatonia for going into the English language?
Occasionally somebody would take a pop, you know, for it, like that's you personally or something, but just in the pub kind of thing. But I think because we weren't a continuation of a Welsh band, you know, we were a different band, even though we were Welsh people and we could speak Welsh. We decided that, you know, we'd been playing for a long time with the Cyrff, and had got to a point where it just felt like a treadwheel in a way. We were playing the same gigs, We were doing all the same things. We were doing the occasional tour of, you know, say somewhere in England, or we went to Czechoslovakia and Poland, places like that. But you kind of feel as if it's not progressing at all, you know?
Yeah.
So when we split, and we did actually split at Cyrff, then it took a while before Catatonia came along, and I suppose our sort of modus operandi was to, we're going to be a bit more commercial. We want to be a commercial indie band, you know?
Yeah.
And you see all these, when we've been for years with the Cyrff, and we weren't quite as sort of radical and left field as bands such as Datblygu. For instance, I mean, John Peel was never that really interested. He was very kind,
Yeah.
but he sort of pointed out it's not really his stuff, and Walters pointed out it's not really their stuff. And they played our stuff a couple of times, I think. But you kind of realise that you need to go somewhere else, you know. And we'd see all these people. We'd be going to TV studios over the years, and the only people who seemed to be making any money out of it were the people who were working for TV companies, radio stations, who were on. And we were still like on the dole or working in really shitty jobs in some cases, you know, like Mark worked on a pig farm for quite a long time and he hated it, but you just need to have some money, you know, we're living in, do you know what I mean? So I think it was a conscious decision to try and do something that was a little more commercial, and obviously that meant doing something in English.
Yeah. So talk us through John Peel's affinity with Datblygu, and whether you were ever tempted in Datblygu to go into English.
We didn't want to sing in English.
No.
At all. And
Never
in
cancelled?
fact, never.
Oh, right.
There was one of the gigs that we were actually asked by Attila the stockbroker
Oh,
to
yeah,
come
yeah.
and playing Harlow with the Unreal.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, we played on
there
that
was
as
some.
well.
Oh yes, you did.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
There was like a sort of Welsh mafia coming to see if they were going to sing in English.
Yes, yeah.
Fred Francis came along.
Oh, right.
And he was like,
It's quite unusual to see Fred Francis in Harlow.
what are you doing here? Yeah, no, so we never ever wanted to sing in English because it was for the Welsh to tell them what we thought of them.
So what was you and Dave's reaction to bands like Catatonia, Furries, Corkies? Did you
Well,
bothered, or?
it was nice to see them having some recognition, and you know, it was good music, so it's fine by us.
Yeah,
Bit
absolutely.
of jealousy, maybe.
Right, so heading into 1996, you've got amazing albums like Everything Must Go with the Manics, who came back after the tragic disappearance of Richie Edwards, with the Design for Life and Everything Must Go. It was had 4 top 10 singles. It was Brit Award winning. It was Enemy Award winning. It won an Ivor Novello. So there's the real change in success of Welsh music now. You've got the Super Furries with Fuzzy Logic released on exactly the same day. You've also got the Big Three. But heading into 1997, what you see there is real sort of moments where you can see the confidence in the Welsh nation changing. So you've got stuff like the Stereophonics, who really put like a tiny little Welsh mining village on the map in Cwmaman. They were very fiercely loyal to Cwmaman. They weren't from Aberdeen. It was, you know.
I thought they were from Aberdeen.
no, don't say that to them. So yeah, it reminds me of when you're at the football Wales away games, and there's always the tiniest towns on these flags. So yeah, you've got that. You've got Gorky's released an album named after their local beach, Barafundle. You've got Donna Lewis, who's doing really well over the other side of the world in the States. Number 2 on the US Billboard, the highest ranking since Bonnie Tyler in 1983, took the Cups of the Heart. And only kept off number 1 by the Macarena. And yeah. And her album's called Now in a Minute, which is very sort of yourself, Huw, released a brilliantly titled compilation of Welsh bands called Dial-M from Eartha. So, which also started with a song called Welsh Bands Suck, which a few years before would have been taken at face value. So talk us through that sort of period.
Yeah, it's kind of weird looking back at it actually, because yeah, so it was on my label Town Hill with Fierce Panda, which was this kind of, it was Simon Williams from NME, and I don't know, is it in your book, or someone was sort of saying, oh, there's no Welsh language music on it.
That's me, yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, well, I think it's a fine thing to say, but the bands, we didn't say don't, you know, submit Welsh language music, we asked the groups to be on it, and they sent us what they had. The Furries and Gorkies were due to be on it, maybe even Topper, and last minute it didn't happen.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's very much you know, a beast of its time. I don't know. I can't remember what the reason behind it. I think it was. I suppose I was always looking outwards of what, you know. It's funny. People talk about the confidence and stuff. I never really lacked confidence, as you can probably tell, or didn't have some of those issues that other people seem to talk about. So. I always had these connections outside of Wales. The Pooh Sticks were based in Holland for quite a while, so I think when all this stuff happened, I just thought it was a good idea to do something. Simon wanted to do it, and that was the reason behind it.
Could yourselves feel that sort of shift in confidence as the 90s grew on?
To an extent, yeah, I think so. That it was, I think the media kind of, the media made it more acceptable to them, perhaps. So, I don't know, it just became like, Wales became a thing that was kind of interesting, you know, because I think probably driven as well by the push towards the referendum. You know?
Yeah, which leads me to my next point. So, in September 1997, the Very Good Morning in Wales arrived, hence the Ron Davies line. Devolution arrived in Wales, Wales' first parliament in 600 years. Achieved by the tiniest of margins as well, so it's even smaller than Brexit. Less than 1% of the turnout, so it's 50.3% that said yes. And it was only, I think, until Carmarthen came in the early hours of the morning that it did do a shift. So yeah, what were you all doing that night? Can you remember devolution night? What were you doing?
I can remember, yeah.
What were you doing?
I think I can remember.
Well, I was on Mill Lane for a while, because you mentioned in the book that...
I think David, was it you did the David? No, what was on Mill Lane?
We were in like Los Iguanos or one of those places, because you say that Cyrff gets really drunk and
yeah, actually I wasn't there.
yeah, well she was with us in Los Iguanos at one point. She liked the cocktails there, right?
Yeah.
So I was very good friends with Val Feld, who was the leader of the Yes campaign.
Yeah.
So we were actually in the Yes campaign party, not a media party, in their thing, because Val was a family friend. She was my landlady for a while, and she was the first. She was the first economic minister when the assembly started, and she sadly passed away in 2001, not long after all this. So I was there, and actually, when you see the footage of, I think is it Huw, one of your mates, there's a lot of drunken footage. Occasionally, you can see me very sober in the background. Because it was very, until that Carmarthen result came in, it was over. Yeah. Everyone was very down. We were there when that result came in.
What's your memories of the night?
Just watch on TV.
Oh, was it?
I think I actually watched it on TV as well. I came home because we had a kid who was about 3 months old.
Right.
That Kath was looking after on her own.
So you weren't in Giovanni's with?
No, I didn't go there. I went out boozing for a bit and then went home before then.
So,
nothing to do with me, Governor.
This is what I'm going to get onto now. Can you give us a PG version of what happened now? It's obviously kids. But, obviously, Keris has got a live mic, and she's asked for her thoughts on devolution to S4C, wasn't it, I think? Was it?
She'd cast aspersions on Sian the Weather's... Sian the Weather's sexual habits. Or something I can't remember.
I think
that's the nicest way
version is who's Sian going to sleep with tonight? That's the clean version. But this was live, but that's not what she said.
I wonder who Sian is sleeping with tonight. I think.
I thought, okay. Okay. Yeah. It was a bit stronger than that.
Oh, yeah, not stronger.
Yeah.
But it was a query.
And I think it led to a ban from S4C from live broadcasting with.
I think it did. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right.
We
Moving
weren't
on.
exactly flavour of the month there anyway.
Right. So Catatonia next album, International Velvet, as modelled by.
Nice.
Came out in February 1998. You could again, it's that indicative of that shift in Welsh confidence in terms of you've got a singer now that's really reveling in her own accent. So you've got the rolled R's of, well, I won't do an impression, but yeah, road rage. You've got the elongated, like, sort of vowel sounds of Mulder and Scully. But most notably, there's a song on there, the title track, International Velvet. So yeah, when I first pitched the book, it was originally going to be an exhaustive history of Welsh music, but in 90,000 words, that's a tall order in terms of what genres do you include, how far back do you go. And you would end up just skimming over everything because there's just not sufficient ground. So we thought, oh, the 90s is the really important bit. So yeah, it was originally going to be called A Design for Life because I wanted something that's synonymous with Welsh music, immediately makes you think of Welsh music. But then I came across International Velvet and I thought that is such a much better fit in terms of it speaks of internationalism. It kind of suggests Wales is exporting great music to the world and getting this international recognition at long last. But also, you couldn't have a singer singing, whether it's ironic or not, every day when I wake up. I thank the Lord I'm Welsh. Even a few years ago, it would have been laughed out of town by the London press. What's your memories of that? I suppose that was a song written by Mark and Cyrff. Would you have any memories of that lyric coming to you?
The lyric, I think was probably more Mark's on that one. I'm not sure. But we worked on like the sample that runs the whole thing, and then we sort of built it up with bass and drums and stuff. And then the lyric is, I always found it really funny because the Welsh bit is kind of making fun of the Welsh, and the English bit is kind of, sort of showing it how proud we are to be Welsh, And I suppose if you could speak Welsh, then you'd understand there is a little subtlety.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't. They just thought it was horrible.
I like the fact that it starts and ends with the same line as well, doesn't it? So it's Defra Cymru Cystal Wake Up Sleepy Wales Land of Song.
Yeah.
So I like the fact it's like this sleeping giant has awoken, gives this massive sort of like, chorus that's come from its own skin and then goes back into its slumber at the end.
There was a hint that it was tongue in cheek though when they referred to the true paradise of Rill.
None of the enemy lot got that though, did they? And it got to #1 a couple of months after the release, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that was on the back, I suppose, of the success of Mulder and Scully and Road Rage. There's a story in the book where Cyrff was celebrating in, I think it was Ibiza or maybe, or Spain anyway. But her card company, a bank, phoned her up because there was a regular activity on her account. Oh, right. And it was Cyrff just, celebrating, So anyway, what was your reaction to the #1? Talk us through that.
It was just, it was almost kind of a bit otherworldly really, because you don't expect it, and when it's, in those days it used to be announced on the radio as well. You'd have a midweek sort of chart, so you'd kind of know that the record was doing really well, and then all of a sudden you get on the weekend, you'd find out on Sunday, you'd find out what position you had,
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a very odd out-of-body experience.
And 2 years later, of course, you did it again with Equally Cursed and Blessed. Released the day after that, aforementioned Scott Gibbs trial. So that was a lot of hangovers, I would have thought, that Monday morning. You get the #1. And also, the Morpher Stadium gig in front of 30,000 was shown last weekend on
It
Wales.
Yeah.
So, what's your memories of that second #1 and Morpher? Not Morpher, Margan Park.
Margan Park, yeah. I suppose because we'd had a bit of success by then, we were in a position where we could do just something. The idea was just to do something a bit daft, and not necessarily. We didn't expect to make any money out of it, really, So basically, we'd had the whole of the castle as sort of like a backstage area, crash, and everybody's parents came and stuff, And then it was just a nice gig, And I think Margan Park were quite pleased because they wanted to get it rolling as an outdoor event, And I think they had Elton John there a week or so after, because they had all the stage in there and everything. But one of the abiding memories is the mud. It really was wet. And also there's a strange one that I remember because I was looking at some of the questions you might ask today, and a very strange thing happened because I think Cyrff had, the week previously, she wasn't known for being shy and retiring about her opinions, and she'd said something about it was either we should eat more meat or the price of lamb or something, or the price of beef, I can't remember exactly, but then had received loads of death threats from animal rights people, which happens,
Was this during all the whole mad cow disease thing, was it? Or?
No, I don't think so. No, I think it was more to do with the price of meat or something for farmers.
Right,
I think she got this personal kind of thing that.
Sounds like she'd been in Los Iguanas again.
yeah. But we actually had to have an ex-military security man on the tour bus with us, you know.
Yeah.
Because some of the threats were quite serious.
Oh,
Right? So that was bizarre, you know. To
And,
start your day.
am I right in thinking there was an ABBA tribute act that was
There was,
supported
yeah.
that?
We'd seen them in. I think we played a gig in Dublin, I think, and we'd seen them there, and we just said, "Oh, do you fancy coming and playing?" We wanted a mixed bill, like.
Yeah. So it's Bjorn again, yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
I was there, yeah.
Oh, right.
And
Ian Brown played.
Ian Brown played, yeah.
Did he go that well?
No, I can imagine, yeah.
I think it was more. He was really low as well at the time. He'd just got out of prison, and he'd had loads and loads of problems. So we just thought, come on, we'll get him.
Yeah.
We tried to get. Was the radio DJ Scott? Scott? No, the guy who does Sounds of the 70s. You know.
Oh, jeez. Who's that?
He'd had problems with drugs. And being
It was
kicked
Phil
out.
Jupiter's in the end, wasn't it?
He was. Yes,
Pompey,
he
yeah.
was. Yeah. I was.
Johnny
actually,
Walker, you mean? Is it Johnny Walker?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. We'd asked him if
Right.
he'd be the compere kind of thing.
Okay.
But he didn't want to do it. I really wanted Johnny Vegas to do it because he was up for
right.
it. And, But no, in the end we decided on.
So I tend to think of, although there's these moments all across the decade, I tend to think of 1999 being the peak of the whole era. So you've got, obviously, Catatonia, #1 album, Equally Cursed and Blessed. You've got Margam Park. You've got Stereophonics with Performance and Cocktails at #1. 50,000 people at Morpher Stadium. You've got the Manics headline in Glastonbury. You've got Tom Jones, who's back, and he's #1 on his 60th birthday with all the cream of the pop and cool Cymru crowd on Duets album. Biggest seller of his career as well, 6 million copies. And then to bring the whole century, millennium to an epic finale is the Manics at Manic Millennium. So they played Radcliffe Square Club, it's a tiny venue across the road from the Millennium Stadium, in 1989 to just 2 people, one of which was their manager and one was Richie's sister. 10 years later, they're playing in front of nearly 60,000 people. I mean, that again is a huge shift, isn't it? Did you guys go? What did you do on Millennium Eve?
I was there.
You were there? Yeah. What did you think?
I couldn't hear them. It was like too far away. The sound system was everywhere.
Yeah, that was the first
It
night,
like
wasn't it?
tiny knobs. Yeah.
Yeah, the first, they were the sort of guinea pigs, the whole, yeah, that was the first gig, yeah. Did you guys go, or were you gigging as well? Or? No?
I went to
can't remember what I was doing.
I went to the press launch of it.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had a wee in the right box, not in the toilet. So I think it's probably the first time I've been to the stadium, actually. And I did have a ticket, or I was on the guest list and that. But I was in my hippie shack in Gower, and it was my partner was pregnant, and I just thought I talked myself out of it.
Right.
So, and didn't go. And then you had horrendous reports.
Yeah.
Of the
No one
bar
could get to
queues
the bar,
and
there's
that,
no
yeah.
food and all
Didn't get
that.
a drink all night.
Yeah, there you go.
So good judge.
Unless you could drink. Don't do that.
But the press launch was good.
Bet you got a drink there.
Several, actually, yeah.
So yeah, that's huge shift in confidence heads into the new millennium then. In May 2000, Super Furry Animals release an album following the demise of Creation Records, who had been the record label for Oasis and Primal Scream. It wasn't a big success, but they self-released through their own label, Plastic Casual, an album called Mung, and every word of it is in the Welsh language, being released nationally and overseas. It's the biggest selling Welsh language album of all time. It even had an early day motion in the House of Commons for the shift in confidence in the Welsh nation. And also, in the middle of it, it's got a cover of A Time Lad by Datblygu, which, am I right in thinking they didn't get permission for, is it? Or
We
not
didn't
sure?
know they were going to do it. But they had the Peel session, and I was listening to Peel. I thought, hang on, this isn't us. Who's singing this? Then I realised and phoned David, did you know?
Yeah, what do you think of it? It's a
Well,
great tribute.
I
though.
thought it was a bit of a cheek myself.
Oh, right.
But then, you know, with hindsight, it's a beautiful version, I must say. I love it, yeah. And, you know, I talk to Griff now and, you know, played along to it with him as well.
Oh, right, okay,
Yeah.
cool. What's you guys' memories of Mum?
I was quite surprised at Tamelad because to me the definitive version is your version, you know, and it's kind of one of those songs that to me it belongs just as it is, you know.
Yeah.
And, but I thought it was a great album, really, really good.
Yeah,
album.
good record. And I thought it was a smart move for them
Yeah.
to do that, because when I met all these guys, it was when you were starting to sing in English. So
That's right, yeah.
that's when I first saw the Furries in '94, and in fact I did the thing that they did with Rhys on Rhys Evans on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Rhys Mine sent me that. So
Yeah.
it made perfect sense to me they were going back
Yeah.
to doing that, because I knew that they were getting, you know, Paul was saying they were getting lots of flack for it.
Yeah.
It's my memory of it anyway.
Yeah, no, they were.
But we were doing all these bills where they were playing with the Anglo-Welsh groups. I thought that was an
Yeah.
exciting time.
Yeah,
And
it's
you don't
good.
get so much of that now.
No.
Even though I still play music in a group, and we're doing a Christmas show in Cardiff for Crisis and Crisis at the charity Crisis at Christmas, and Ernest are going to play with us, and you know, we're young
it's
Welsh
just a-
students, so I'm still
it's
into
not
that. I
so-
think it's actually quite good because you're playing to different audiences
Yeah.
as well.
It's not so segregated now, I don't think, in people's heads, you know.
No, but I don't see a lot of bills where is that mixed up.
Maybe
so-
individual promoters.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So I know the bands are quite happy to play you know,
Yeah.
with.
So it brought that back to me then. So I thought it was a very good record.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good.
Right, so it's the last couple of minutes now. So, Cool Cymru, although amazing period to look back on, I was quite keen not to get it into the title or subtitle of the book in terms of, it's quite a divisive term like Britpop in terms of it gathers together all these bands who are completely sort of disparate really, but their only similarity is that they share the same national identity. What I would say is I think Cool Cymru was a far greater force for good in Wales than Britpop was in England. If you look at Britpop, there's a lot of jingoism attached to it, there's a lot of homophobia, misogyny, it's very white, it's very, you know, four lads in cuckolds a lot of the time. What is your legacy? What do you think the legacy of Cool Cymru is?
Cool Cymru, I don't think I've ever felt that I was part of that at all. And again, I honestly think that it was very much a thing. It probably helped us because newspapers, journalists, articles everywhere could refer to something that was an umbrella which gets you that little bit of attention. So sometimes it would work for you, I guess, but it's not something I ever felt part of. And I think, despite Cool Cymru, that Wales was gaining confidence.
I think with us, we were always uncool and identify with it at all.
I don't think of myself as cool.
It's a bit silly, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
Cool Cymru. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the things I think by that point, it happened. All the bands had happened because it was
That's right.
it was
yeah.
about '97 or something like that, and you know, Cool Britannia was pretty horrible, and the Cool Cymru. My memory of it was that it was invented by the Western Mail, and it had that kind of like we need a Welsh version of it. That's my memory of it.
More
I
to
think,
do with selling houses than anything else.
yeah, maybe. But it was all kind of sort of
Yeah. So do you think that 90s era in Wales still inspires today's sort of vibrancy and joy in Wales?
I think, well, the thing I've noticed recently, because we've been playing a bit, I've been playing with Mark with his band Mister. What we're getting a lot of now is younger people, say like 17, 18, 19, who are more listening to a Cyrff, which is quite strange, yeah. Because it's almost like a generation and a half since then, isn't it? Yeah. No, that's quite unusual, more so than Catatonia, in Wales, obviously.
I think that Datblygu is still very influential to today's.
Yeah, so we paved the way, so don't mess it up.
Any final thoughts, Huw?
well, things obviously you touched on it, but there wasn't a lot happening at all, was there? It was the stuff in the Welsh language scene, but that's the crazy
letters
thing.
to each other,
Yeah.
fanzines and
And that word's been ignored so much that actually all these things had sort of
they were ready
had
to
been
roll.
gestated, and because you know with the Pooh Sticks, I had friends, but I didn't have many friends in bands because most of the bands in Swansea I really didn't like. And all of a sudden, coming back from Holland, I met the Dolls and Catatonia. It was like, all these bands are absolutely brilliant. You know, I saw Catatonia play with no one there. I saw, you know, we've all done it.
We did play in Birmingham once where there was actually just one man and a dog.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. In the pub, he bought a CD. He should have bought one for the dog.
And I saw you in TJ's once where you went on so late at the train, and literally
gone.
I was the last one going, saying I've got to catch the train. And you know, you play to an empty room. So,
but we'd enjoy it anyway.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think I will say this, is that what has happened is that, excuse the pun, is that now it's not unusual for a band to come from Wales. It's not, you can come from Wales and it's not like they're from Wales, that's weird, right? It's just bands get on the radio and they can do whatever they want about their Welsh identity and how they project that. But we're not derided in the way that it was before.
Accepted.
Yeah, it's accepted. And there's lots of different identities and all this stuff going on, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. That's the best. That's the best thing. The best sort of outcome, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Any questions? No really tricky ones now.
Nothing involving memory.
Yeah.
A question for Pat. We spoke about it briefly earlier, and you touched upon it tonight, but you were obviously the only sort of female on the 2 Rhys Moyne compilations, and Neil's book's called International Velvet. Obviously, you know, the song's fronted by a female singer. Did you feel at the time, and you're obviously credited with, you know, supporting Adwaith on their journey. Did you feel at the time you were sort of like breaking down barriers, or did it in a male-dominated industry?
I was totally ignored, as if I didn't exist. I mean, you know, if the engineer were asking, "Is that all right?" You know, he'd ask Wyn, who was sitting next to me, who was asleep, rather than speak to me. And yeah, there was quite a lot of, you know, ignored me completely. Yeah, I was even Rhys Moyne, in his autobiography of the era, I don't get even one mention.
No.
Joking.
No.
Really? You check. I know. Shock. I was just the bass player. And the getaway car.
But do you feel like you've sort of broken down those barriers by just being visible?
Yes, lots of women now sort of, get in touch and wrote to me and stuff. Yeah. That's great.
But that was the thing at the time, wasn't it? Women in rock. I mean, it was just like there weren't a lot of women in bands, and particularly in Wales. I mean, obviously, Young Marble Giants, Alison was was a woman, and Andrew from the Darling Buds. But so
bit of the Welsh scene, you know, Welsh scene.
sure.
And Flaps came along.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. But we didn't see each other. They were North Wales and we were South Wales. You know, you just don't get the opportunities to meet up.
Cool. Anyone else? Right. We shall wrap it up then. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. Right.
Go and buy the book, yeah?
I don't know. Make sure you buy a book.
Don't see that.
Right.
Where's that happening? Is that happening here?
I think so. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Can you have a photo of the?
Yeah. Free one, or have you got to buy one?
Right. There's 2 of us there.
I think we've got to buy one.
Yeah, no free.
How old are you supported in? I've been in charge of friends.
Yeah, so we took a chair.
You are?
So I'm in the chair.
Probably could cut in a little bit.
Come in, Paul.
Right. Okay, I'll take a couple. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have my gut up now.